Track Series. We have highlights from all of these events and much more on this month's edition of Motoworld. The longer I talk, the less you see, so let's get started. First up is a look at one of the most fascinating forms of motorcycle competition. Participants are super riders that appear to leap tall buildings with a single bound while keeping their wheels on the ground and their feet on the pegs. It's called Observe Trials. Mount Vernon, Washington was the site of Round 6 of the Observe Trials World Championship Series, a series competed in by some of the most talented athletes in the world. American rider and former world champion Bernie Schreiber, number 15, now living in France, was on hand for the U.S. round.
Well, I think the basic object is to get through the sections without putting your feet down. It's a little bit basically like golf in a way. You know, you got a course, it's 3. Maybe you go around 3 times, but you'll have like 18 sections, which would be a little bit like the 18 holes in a golf course. And the idea is to get the minimum amount of points you can possibly. The maximum you can get is a 5. That's what you don't want to get. And we're trying to get a 0 all the time, but it's the most difficult score to get.
The Mount Vernon course consisted of 17 observed sections that were each ridden 3 times. 7.5 hours were allotted to complete the course. The best riders devoted at least 2/3 of the allotted time to the first lap. Most of that time was spent walking the sections and studying the lines of their competitors. Boundaries are marked with ribbons. A rider can run over a ribbon but cannot go outside it. That's a failure. A penalty of 5 points. If a rider completes a section without putting his foot down or going outside the boundaries, he has cleaned the section and is awarded 0 points. If he dabs once, that's touching his foot to the ground, he is penalized 1 point. 2 dabs, 2 points, and 3 dabs, 3 points. After 3 dabs, as long as a rider maintains forward motion, he can dab as many times as he wants with no further penalty. If forward motion is lost, it's a failure and 5 points. The ability of the better riders to clean sections is unbelievable. The balancing acts to stay within the section boundaries defy description. However, despite those abilities, there are always obstacles that appear unconquerable. This section of rocks, for example, with a 4-foot vertical wall caused problems all day, until it was Eddie Lejeune's turn. Lejeune, a 3-time world champion from Belgium, made it look easy. At Mount Vernon, Lejeune finished 3rd. Second at the American round was rider number 3, Steve Saunders from England. Saunders and Lejeune are Honda teammates. Winning his first ever world championship event with 54 points was rider number 11, Jordi Terres from Spain. Terres, who rode a Beta, is a former bicycle trials champion that has been riding motorcycles for only 2 years. Although he does not understand English, he did understand the cheers of the spectators. And what did Jordi think of the enthusiastic American crowd?
I said that I think really that all was profit and all people in the section was very, very good. Possibly as some fun, I don't know.
From the cycle news in the win column come these late-breaking stories. Former Daytona 200 winner Gary Nixon has squelched rumors that he would ride in the July 3rd Paul Revere 250 endurance race at Daytona. The former 2-time Grand National champion said, "I'm flattered, but that would scare me to death. I've been away from it for too long." The latest rumored entries for the Nissan 200 at Laguna Seca include Yamaha's world champion Eddie Lawson. Randy Mamola, the 3-time and defending Laguna Seca winner, will be Lawson's stiffest competition in the 200. Also entered is Mike Baldwin, the U.S. defending Formula One champion. 3-wheel ATVs could be history. That is, if the Consumer Product Safety Commission follows recommendations of the House of Representatives Committee on Government Operations. The recommendations to the CPSC call for a ban on the sale of 3-wheel ATVs and a recall of those currently in the hands of consumers. If it becomes a reality, you have to ask yourself, what's next? Catch up with all the latest motorcycle stories in the latest edition of Cycle News. The AMA Motoworld U.S. Endurance Road Racing Series is well into its 14-race schedule and enjoying a tight battle for the championship. For an update on the latest 2 rounds, here's Ari Landrum.
The green flag. No matter what type of racing, the meaning's the same. The race is on. In this case, the race was round 5 of the AMA Motoworld U.S. Endurance Series. 36 teams took the green for the 500K event, but as in the last event, it was a 1-team show. Number 2 Suzuki-mounted Team Lockhart were again the class of the field, taking their second straight win and third victory in 5 events. By the time leadoff rider Lynn Miller handed over to team owner Wendell Phillips, the race was already in the bag. Lockhart's pit work was as meticulous as their preparation and riding. Second at Brainerd was Colbert Racing number 91, while GTU honors, bikes under 600 cc's, went to hometown heroes Team Tenacious out of Bloomington, Minnesota, aboard Yamaha number 176. Up front, Lockhart took the checkered flag for a convincing win. Once in the winner's circle, however, the Alabama-based team were not resting on their laurels.
We need to win 6 races this year out of 14 to actually wrap the championship up. With 3 wins and 1 second and a good, strong second right now, we may miss Loudon and just concentrate on Daytona right now.
Team Lockhart did, in fact, skip the next round, and it may have been a good thing they did. The Tight Briar Motorsports Park course took its toll on both rider and machine. This is not a marshmallow roast, but rather former National Endurance Champions Team Cycletech going up in flames. Anyone interested in a slightly used bike? Cheap? The Loudon round offered a little bit of everything. In the late stages of the race, number 15 New Haven Suzuki were dominating the proceedings. This team has been a consistent front runner all year, but with a handful of laps remaining, an unscheduled tire change handed the lead over to number 126, Swing Racing out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. New Haven Suzuki charged back into contention and was closing on the leaders when on the last lap, New Haven's Kevin Rinzel lost it and went down hard. Ironically, Swing Racing also went down on the final lap, but made it back to the start-finish line for the big upset win. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Erie Landrum.
Still to come on Motoworld, the toughest hare scramble in the world, the Blackwater 100. More road racing as the Camel Pro Pavement Series shifts into high gear. And coming up next, outdoor motocross from Pennsylvania and Colorado. Stay with us. Motoworld will be right back. Welcome back to Motoworld. The 1986 motocross season so far had been a Rick Johnson benefit. But in round 4 of the 1986 championship season at Mount Morris, Pennsylvania, a few surprises were in store for Rick Johnson. The first surprise came at the start of the first 250 moto when defending champion Jeff Ward from Mission Viejo, California, got the hole shot. Johnson, who was right on Ward's rear wheel, got another surprise when Honda teammate Johnny O'Mara and Billy Lyles on the green Kawasaki pushed Johnson back to 4th. By the end of the second lap, Ward had opened a huge lead over the rest of the field. Danny Storbeck, meanwhile, was charging through the pack and had moved to 2nd with Johnson following in 3rd. But then Johnson went to the inside of Storbeck and blasted by the San Antonio native. On the next corner, the Yamaha rider, apparently not impressed with Johnson's credentials, returned the favor and regained the number 2 position. Johnson eventually got by Storbeck for good and set out after Ward. Ward, though, with a clear track, appeared uncatchable. But Johnson kept charging, and on the last lap was in striking distance. The 30-minute moto turned into a sprint to the finish. Ward got there first to take a wire-to-wire win, while Johnson served notice that the next moto would be different. For Ward, it was easily his best ride of the season.
This year I just been getting bad starts, and I get in the pace of the guys back there and just screws up my rhythm, and I just can't get going. The leaders get gone, and this time I got out front, and boy, it felt good to be out there.
Ward was again out there in moto number 2, but not out far enough. Ahead of him was Johnson. Ward stayed in contention right up to the checkered flag, but the moto and the overall win, his 4th in a row, went to Rick Johnson. In 125 action, Team Honda's Mickey Diamond became the 4th different overall winner in as many 125 nationals. In the first moto, Diamond finished 2nd behind Suzuki's Eric Kehoe. The second moto, though, was all Mickey Diamond. The Mount Morris win was the first national win in the career of the Yorba Linda, California native. A win he'll cherish for a long time to come. Next up was Lakewood, Colorado, and the Coors-sponsored final race of the 250 Championship Series. A finish of 12th or better in the first moto would give Johnson the title. He could do that in his sleep, but that's not the way Rick Johnson rides. He took the early lead in the moto and rode as hard as he could to the end. Then, with both arms raised in victory, Johnson rolled over the finish line jump to claim the 250 National Championship.
I didn't want to lose. I guess I'm a little bit greedy. I don't want to let no one win, even though it would be the wise thing to do is just ride around and come and say 5th in the first moto and clinch the championship. I got too much pride to do that.
Can't afford a bike? Need a helmet? Or maybe you don't have anything to wear on your next date? The answer to your problem is here. It's the Coors Trivia Contest. Grand prize is a 1986 Honda VF 1000R with a custom-built Chariot trailer. 10 second-place winners will receive Terry Vance signature helmets from Bell. 15 third-place winners get Coors racing jackets, while 20 fourth-place winners will receive official Honda Line race team shirts. To enter, all you have to do is go down to your local Honda dealer and pick up an entry form at the Coors Trivia Contest display, or write to Motoworld and we'll send you the entry forms. Answer all the questions correctly and you're in the running. To help get you off to a good start, here's a clue to question number 24 on the form. Who was the first person to win a World Supercross Championship? Here's the clue. Put together where you work out and a common Christmas decoration. Don't forget, entry forms are available at your local Honda dealer at the Coors Trivia Contest display or write to Motoworld. There are 2 ways to slide an ATV, the right way and the wrong way. Joe Colombero, editor of Dirt Wheels magazine, shows us how it's done in our Rider Tip of the Month.
Sliding, pitching it, backing it in. Getting sideways can be a real blast, but it's not just a way to have fun. Learning proper sliding technique is the way to make cornering your ATV both safer and easier.
When it comes to corners, it's important to understand the differences in handling between 2, 3, and 4-wheelers. For instance, you might think that big wheelers react more like motorcycles while turning, but you'll probably have to manhandle a BW just to make it slide. And body position is even more critical on a 3-wheeler. You have to shift your weight to the inside of the corner. A lot of riders find 4-wheelers easier to corner, but you still have to lean into the turn. Corners call for power slides or braking slides. With a power slide, you have to stay on the gas and muscle the bars to control the pitch. On a 3-wheeler, get off the seat and shift your weight well to the inside to keep the rear wheels down. And if you start to high side, roll off the throttle before things get out of hand. Once you've chosen a line, pour on the power and feather the clutch if the engine starts to bog. With any kind of slide, don't try to change direction or come off the gas suddenly. You could stall, high side, or even overshoot your mark. And big wheelers have a mind of their own when it comes to turning. You have to use your whole body to help you make the corner. At this speed, it might be better to downshift than to clutch it to maintain your momentum. And remember, only on a 2-wheeler can you extend your leg for balance. In a tight turn, body position is even more critical for both 3 and 4-wheelers. 3-wheelers should weight the outside peg while still leaning hard to the inside, because if you don't shift your weight, the bike will spit you off. The same goes for a 4-wheeler, especially in a rut-infested uphill corner like this one. To brake slide, first clutch it and downshift to avoid stalling. Give it some throttle and use the rear brake to slow you down, then pop the clutch and gas it. 4-wheelers often have a tendency to spin out. Use the clutch and front brake to maintain control. BWs and 3-wheelers can use the front brake on approach, but they should only use the rear brake when turning. Front braking cuts into your momentum and inhibits your sliding power. You could wash out, nosedive, or even stall. As you know, races can be won or lost in the corner. When you're in the lead, you can shut the door on your opponent by sliding right into his line. Or, in this case, the leader takes the inside going in, then blocks the faster outside line. This forces the other rider to spin out when he tries to avoid a collision. So whether you're on a 2, 3, or 4-wheeler, concentrate on clutch and throttle control with a power slide and good body position with a braking slide. And if you can, try practicing on sand. Mastering these techniques will help you get sideways only when you want to get sideways. For Motoworld, this is Joe Colombero with Dirt Wheels magazine, Rider Tip of the Month.
Motoworld is brought to you by U.S. Suzuki Motor Corporation.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's the toughest, nastiest, gnarliest hare scrambles race in the United States. It's also the most popular race ever shown on Motoworld. It's the Blackwater 100.
It's just really a good week and good fun weekend because, you know, everybody's here and there's some people here that are here to race. Other people are here just to have a, you know, spectate and have a good time. And it's a good chance to see all the good riders, you know, and it's not a national, but yet there's still something about it, you know. And I just tell people, you got to come and try it once, you know, at least.
For the 12th annual Blackwater 100, close to 500 riders were on hand. They were started in rows of 5 seconds apart, and stayed that way for at least, maybe 300 yards where the first Blackwater obstacle was encountered.
Right off the bat, they hit you with a river, so the first river sort of gets you wet, and then just from there you keep getting even wetter, and the bikes get heavier, you know, the bogs get deeper. So it ain't nothing really to look forward to.
This year's Blackwater was the driest ever. The dreaded peat bogs were a virtual highway.
But I think the biggest thing out there is you got a lot of bogs and you got places to where it can just actually suck your motorcycle up. And if you don't use your head and pick a good line, then you're going to get stuck out there for a long time.
The favored watching spot is the Route 93 river crossing. It's a chance for spectators to join in the fun without paying an entry fee.
Lots of people come here. A lot of people have fun. And for a dirt bike race, this is one of the few that really has a good spectator crowd. There was a band last night. Just party atmosphere. It's like a rock concert, you know.
After 5 20-mile laps and 3.5 hours later, Team Husqvarna's Mark Hyde took the checkered flag. It was Hyde's third Blackwater win. With his father looking on, this one was special.
I tell you, I don't know. I think it's better this time than the first. And this is for you, Dad, Father's Day.
The first Blackwater race for ATVs was in 1983. There was a grand total of 11 entries. At this year's event, the entries had swelled to almost 300. Like the cycles, the first ATV obstacle was the mandatory bath 300 yards from the start. To an off-road rider, the sudden appearance of spectators spells trouble. The bigger the crowd, the bigger the trouble. On Route 93, there was an awful big crowd. Of the 300 starters, 69 of them completed the 3-lap race. Ahead of them all was Suzuki quad rider Jeff Bernard from McHenry, Maryland. For the second year in a row, Bernard was king of the ATVs at the toughest, nastiest, gnarliest hare scrambles race in the United States, the Blackwater 100. While Jeff Bernard was wallowing in the Blackwater mud, other ATV enthusiasts were finding happiness at Porterville, California and Boyd, Texas. Those were the sites of the most recent rounds of the AATVA Grand National Series. Ari Landrum reports.
Round 2 of the AATVA series took place under the lights, and it was the first TT race of the series. In pro quad competition, John Neary in blue and Steve Wright in white battled throughout the main event. At the end, it was Suzuki-mounted Neary that took the win, his first of the '86 season. In 3-wheel pro competition, it was all Team Honda's Marty Hart. The defending national champion took the early lead and never looked back. Like Neary, it was Marty Hart's first win of the season. From California, the series traveled east to Texas. Winning the pro classes and taking home the lion's share of the pro purse was Gary Denton on a 4-wheeler and Steve Mendenhall in the 3-wheel class. Between AATVA races, most of the top quad riders stopped off at the LA Coliseum for the final round of the Suzuki Springtime Quad Racer Series. The best in the East, Mike Holbert in orange pants from Pennsylvania, and the best in the West, Gary Denton, number 3 from California, went head-to-head. In the early going, Holbert snared the lead and appeared headed for the win. Back east, they called him the Quad God, and he was showing the California fans why. Denton, meanwhile, was working his way to the front of the pack. The California did not get a good start, but on the truck, he was making up for it. Then Holbert gave Denton the break he needed. The quad god had endoed on a set of doubles, and for all practical purposes was out of the race. With a clear track ahead, Denton romped home the winner. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Harry Landry.
California has always been the hotbed of speedway competition in America. One of the most important events on the American Speedway calendar recently took place in Long Beach. The event carried with it worldwide significance. Mark Gleckel reports.
The best speedway riders from the United States gathered in Long Beach, California for the American Speedway Final, the first step down the path to the World Championship.
This is the single most important race in America that determines which 5 riders will carry this country's hopes overseas to the championships held this year in Katowice, Poland in August. Most of the USA's best live and race in California or England, where speedway is most popular, and it's a rare treat to see this kind of talent in one race. Stars like Lance King, Kelly Moran, Sam Ermolenko, Bobby Schwartz, and injured Sean Moran.
I broke my ankle 2 weeks ago, and if I don't make it through this round, it would have been for nothing.
I got to go out there and win the thing, I reckon. You know, I can't be, you can't slack off and say, oh, I'll take a second or I'll take a third. You know, you got to go win every race you can.
Out of 16, we've got probably 7 to 10 guys that are capable of taking those 5 spots. So through this round, the next rounds are easy as pie. So this is definitely a difficult round for us.
Well, this one's important because if you don't get through, it's all over.
John Cook, last year's winner here, looked good winning his first race, but luck wasn't on his side, crashing in Event 7, and then after mechanical problems, crashing again in this heart-stopping Turn 1 incident. Tough break cookie. Mike Faria scored highly until a dead battery box robbed him of a victory, taking any chance of California regulars going through. Lance King went on to win that one, and with riding like this, King proved he's back, taking second overall. Little Kelly Moran transferred as well with this must-pass situation over Faria, and Bobby Schwartz captured 4th with a consistent night of 3 firsts and 2 seconds. Sam Ermolenko, also with 3 firsts, showed why he's the talk of the speedway world, taking 3rd. But the class act of the night was Sean Moran. Riding with a broken ankle, Sean won 4 of his 5 races and captured the hearts of the overflow crowd with inspired riding like this, winning the American Speedway Final in his quest to be the 3rd world champion from the United States.
Speedway is always a case of gaining, and on the night, and I like to really stipulate that it's usually on the night, I just happen to get it together, and I'm pretty happy with the title I haven't won in a long time. But I had a chance to come here and qualify, and paid off even better than I expected.
Reporting in California for Motoworld, this is Mark Gleckel.
The Camel Pro Road Racing Championships shifted into high gear this month with events on 4 consecutive weekends. The June grind should have given us a clear championship standings picture, but as Dennis Torres reports, the Superbike and Formula One titles are still very much up for grabs.
The Honda Classic, the 3rd meeting of the AMA's Camel Pro Road Racing Series. First to take the green on the 3-mile Brainerd course was the Formula One class. Number 6, Team Honda's Wayne Rainey led number 96, Randy Renfro, in the early going. The 2 riders had fans on their feet with the classic battle. Well, most of them anyway. At the 1/3 mark, Rainey's gearbox let him down and opened the door for Renfro to take a long overdue first ever Formula One national win. Despite his winning credentials, Renfro remains one of road racing's biggest kept secrets. In the Superbike race, Rainey started with 2 big advantages. First, Suzuki's Kevin Schwantz broke his collarbone and could not compete. Second, defending Superbike champ Fred Merkel had to start at the back of the grid due to a DNF in his heat race. The result was a runaway win for the talented California rider. Merkel charged to a 2nd place finish from the back of the pack, but couldn't overcome his starting handicap. Next on the Camel Pro schedule was a visit to Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin. At 4 miles in length, the Road America course is the longest and one of the fastest on the tour. The man who had the measure of the Road America track was Team Honda's Wayne Rainey. Number 6 Rainey led off the line in the Superbike race and was never challenged. His performance at Road America was demoralizing for his competitors. Engine man Rob Muzzy and chassis wrench Sparky Edmondson had number 6 flying. Honda teammate Fred Merkel was the only other rider who had a chance at beating Rainey, but could never close the gap and settled for 2nd. In the Formula One race, the familiar red, white, and blue number 6 was out front again and never headed. Rainey and his tuner, ex-racer Phil McDonald, had the Grand Prix RS 500 Honda running flawlessly. McDonald greeted Rainey on the pit road and congratulated him for scoring the first Superbike F1 double win since Freddie Spencer's double last year at Daytona. From Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, reporting for Motoworld, this is Dennis Torres.
Stay tuned, we'll be back with more road racing from Loudon, New Hampshire and Pocono, Pennsylvania. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Motoworld. The Camel Pro Road Racing Series left the Midwest after Brainerd and Road America and headed east to Loudon, New Hampshire and Pocono, Pennsylvania. The first stop, the Loudon Classic, where riders were challenged by one of the oldest and most difficult tracks in America, Breyer Motorsports Park. Setting up a bike at this twisty track is crucial. Evidence, the Formula One race. Wayne Rainey, number 6, led early but faded due to a gamble in his race setup that did not pay off. Number 96, Randy Renfro, and number 99, Cork Ballington, battled each other for the win, with Renfro taking the close victory. In the Superbike race, it was all Wayne Rainey as he took his third straight win in that class. Rainey led all 38 laps of the race and has established himself as the rider to beat for the rest of the year. Next up was the 2.5-mile Pocono Raceway, combining a high-speed tri-oval and a tight infield section. In the Formula One race, Rainey lost out by inches to Renfro after a tight battle the whole way. Renfro was ecstatic in the winner's circle. Rainey got his way in the Superbike race, however, with a flag-to-flag win, never putting a wheel out of place and taking Superbike win number 4 in a row. Rainey now leads the Camel Pro Road Racing standings with Fred Merkel and Randy Renfro right behind. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Dennis Torres.
Wayne Rainey's performance in the month of June was nothing short of spectacular. Racing on 2 very different types of machinery, sometimes on the same day, he scored 4 straight Superbike wins and recorded a win, a second, and a third in Formula One. For his versatile performances, which led to 5 national road race wins, Wayne Rainey is our Castrol Rider of the Month. The Team Honda rider will receive a custom-embroidered Castrol racing jacket as well as a commemorative plaque from Castrol for being selected the June Castrol Rider of the Month. As always, we welcome your nominations for next month's Castrol Rider of the Month. Send your nomination to Motoworld, P.O. Box 490099, Atlanta, Georgia 30349. That's Motoworld, P.O. Box 490099, Atlanta, Georgia 30349. Ever since the inaugural Super Bowl of Motocross 14 years ago, the event, held annually at the Los Angeles Coliseum, has enjoyed status as one of the most prestigious rounds on the Supercross Tour. Team Honda's Rick Johnson had already sewn up the Supercross Championship when the series finale came to L.A., but from the way he rode, you would think the title was still up for grabs. Supercross started at the L.A. Coliseum in 1972, and like good wine, it gets better every year. This year was certainly no exception. Fans arrived early to get autographs from Miss Suzuki or to have their pictures taken with Miss Coors. U.S. Suzuki was on hand to display the latest in motorcycle technology. And in the paddock area, riders mingled with fans. Fans that when the event got underway that evening numbered in excess of 50,000. What they saw was an aerial show that starred who else but Rick Magic Johnson. In his heat race, Johnson showed his fans who was number 1. He followed that with a spectacular finish line cross-up. There were several challengers for RJ's aerial crown. Some received 10s, while others got 0s. With the main event underway, Johnson found himself in third behind a pair of Kawasaki's. Ron Lachine was the leader, followed by defending Supercross champion Jeff Ward. With a jump that almost brought rain, Johnson passed Ward and set his sights on his El Cajon neighbor. The enthusiastic crowd screamed for more, and Johnson gave it to them. Over the roughest part of the track, Johnson changed lines and blew by his former teammate. From that point, the race was history. The crowd waved at Johnson, and Johnson took the Super Bowl win. Second place in the Super Bowl went to the O-Show Johnny O'Mara, who was followed by Ward. Watching Honda's Ricky Johnson and Johnny O'Mara do their thing was former Honda factory rider Danny Magoo Chandler. Magoo was tragically paralyzed last year in a European Supercross accident, but has not left the hearts and minds of American motocross fans. The LA Coliseum fans donated over $12,000 to help Danny's growing medical bills. Fans are not the only ones coming to Magoo's aid. Former world champion Brad Lackey recently organized a star-studded benefit race that was an autograph collector's fantasy. Former world champions Roger DeCoster and Andre Malherbe were only a few of the big-name riders on hand.
It's like a class reunion. These guys haven't seen each other in 10 years or so, so they're all having a good time getting back together, and I think after the event it's going to be a pretty good party.
Well, I think it's going to be really good. We got a lot of people here, a lot of help. It's just great that everybody's showing, all the respect and care that they, it feels really good that everybody's here.
For the record, Billy Grossi won the event, but that was unimportant when compared to the cause.
I think the cause for Danny Chandler is about number one in any of the riders' eyes. I think we should do a benefit race every year for, in advance for riders that do get hurt and have a lot of doctor bills and have a lot of problems like that. And I'd say I encourage everybody out there that watches Motoworld to send in a donation, and I think Larry will give you the address.
You bet, Bob. To help Magoo, send your donation to Danny Chandler Fund, Civic Bank of Commerce, 700 Ignacio Valley Road, Walnut Creek, California, 94596. The Camel Pro Series stars began their swing east with a trio of dirt track nationals which took them from Springfield, Illinois to Louisville, Kentucky, and then south to New Orleans. First off, the ultra-fast mile at the Illinois State Fairgrounds. Before the Springfield National in the fall of 1985, Ricky Graham was named Mr. Springfield Mile. He promptly went out and took his 5th Springfield win in 7 races. Graham's Honda teammate, Bubba Schobert, number 67, learned a tough lesson in that race after taking the lead on the final lap and ending up an eventual 3rd.
Well, I just, after I took the lead, I knew I had to get through those corners the best I could without making a mistake and try to get far enough ahead that they couldn't pass me on the back straightaway. And then I felt I could beat them off turn 4 to the finish line. But as it was, they both slipped past me at the end of the straightaway, and I couldn't make it up.
Graham's victory was a highlight of his injury-plagued 1985 season. This year, after 2 years as a Honda factory star, Graham is once again a member of the privateer ranks, while Schobert remains Honda factory back. The two rivals locked horns again in this Springfield Mile event, with Graham, number 3, giving number 1 Schobert another lesson on why he owns the Springfield Mile. 7 riders were in a lead-swapping confrontation throughout the last half of the 25-lap main event, but only one would come up the winner. Schobert charged to the front of the pack as they entered turn 3 on the final lap and held the lead as the field came off turn 4 to begin the drag race to the checkered flag. Then Graham reached into his bag of Springfield goodies and pulled out a draft and pass move, which saw him come up with his 6th victory. Schobert was inches behind in 2nd, while Chris Carr finished 3rd.
2 laps from the end, I thought, well, I better start getting serious, think about where I'm at the start-finish line. And the bottom line is just to not let off, just keep going for it the whole way.
Graham and Schobert also got close at Louisville, but only off the starting line. The battle in the 20-lap main event was between Harley-Davidson teammates Scott Parker, number 11, and number 20, Chris Carr. Carr, the 1985 Camel Pro Series Rookie of the Year, ran the first half of the race in the lead before teammate Parker took over with a slick pass heading into corner number 1. Carr's final challenge in the dash to the checkered flag almost caught Parker off guard as Parker began celebrating his win a little bit early. Parker had half a bike length lead to spare at the finish line. For the Flint, Michigan native, it was career national win number 11. It brought him within 6 points of series point leader Bubba Schobert, who finished 3rd. Next up for the Camel Pro Stars was another mile, the Battle of Bourbon Street, New Orleans, Louisiana. Steve Moorhead, number 42, emerged from the dust at the end of lap 1 to lead the 17-rider field. Trying to see where they were going was the biggest problem faced by the riders. Sand from the track, mixed with water that was applied to keep the dust down, turned into a cement-like mud. Getting close to a spinning rear wheel was instant loss of vision. Tear-offs lasted 3 or 4 laps at the most. Despite the poor vision, Graham, number 3, came from out of the pack to catch and challenge Moorhead. At the midway point, Graham took the lead and held it. Moorhead, although he dropped off the pace, finished second. Scott Parker on the number 11 machine rolled into third early in the final half of the 25-lap main event and held off the challenges of Randy Goss, number 6, for third. For Ricky Graham, it was career mile win number 15, and that makes him the winningest mile racer in Camel Pro history. Parker's third-place finish earned him enough points to leave New Orleans with a tie for the Camel Pro Series points lead with Bubba Schobert, who finished 8th. Camel Pro dirt track racing is also the subject for this month's Fram Autolite Flashback. Here's Dave Bowman with a look back at one of the most memorable moments in motorcycle racing, brought to you by Fram Autolite.
The site, the Illinois State Fairgrounds. The event, the final round of the 1984 Camel Pro National Dirt Track Championship. 2 riders had a chance at the title in the prestigious number 1 plate. The riders were not only rivals, but teammates as well. Also, the Team Honda stars were a contrast in both riding styles and personalities. Californian Ricky Graham, a former number 1 plate holder, was known for his outspoken demeanor and aggressive riding, while his teammate and championship rival, Bubba Schobert, was a quiet Texan that let his riding do the talking. 25 laps would decide the championship. After a whole season and 32 races, the championship would boil down to less than a half an hour of riding. With 2 laps to go, both Graham and Schobert were in the midst of a 4-rider battle for the lead. The action was literally handlebar to handlebar. Then, apparent disaster as Graham hooked the handlebars with one of the other riders and went down hard. The battle continued for the lead as Graham, in pain with a broken arm, rejoined the fray. With Graham only a handful of points ahead of Schobert in the series standings, the crash all but handed the title to Schobert. Number 67 Schobert lost the race by inches, but was certain he had won the championship. Riders, fans, and most of all, Graham and Schobert waited anxiously as the race results and championship points were tabulated. Graham had finished the race, but the question was, in what position? Then the announcement. Graham had finished 13th. His year-end point total was enough to garner him the title by a scant 1 point over his teammate Schobert. Graham had lost the battle, but he'd won the Camel Pro War. The number 1 plate went to a hurting but a happy Ricky Graham. This is Dave Bowman. Join me next month on Motoworld for another Fram Autolite Flashback.
From the heated action of mile dirt track racing, we turn our attention to quarter-mile drag racing and the 3rd round of the IDBA series. The biggest upset of the weekend came in the first round of Pro Stock eliminations, where newcomer Todd Moore of Clearwater, Florida, defeated multi-time title holder Terry Vance of Santa Fe Springs, California. Moore advanced to the Final 4 in the 16-bike field before being eliminated. Steve Miles of Louisville, Kentucky, and Dave Schultz of Fort Myers, Florida, squared off in the all-Kawasaki Pro Stock Final. Schultz, in the far lane, took the win. The funny bike final saw Kawasaki rider Bobby Baker of Camden, South Carolina, and Charles Israel from Americus, Georgia, on the line. Suzuki-mounted Israel, in the near lane, had waited for Baker and his crew to complete engine repairs so the two could give the fans a show. To Israel's dismay, Baker blistered the quarter mile for the victory. The next round of the IDBA series takes place July 19th and 20th at Norwalk Raceway Park in Norwalk, Ohio. The perfect combination for winning is the right rider on the right machine with the right preparation. This month, Coors takes a look behind the scenes at 2 of the very best in the business of road racing preparation. Merlin Plumley, left, and Mike Velasco, right, supplied the ingredients with which Fred Merkel brewed successive Superbike championship titles. Their recipe is simple. Just combine long hours and hard work with a driving desire to be the best.
Both Mike and Merlin are very much committed to what they're doing, and you can see they put their whole heart into it.
Not to mention a lot of hours as well. Both are former racers and realize that preparing a winning combination is time-consuming.
An average week during the race season will usually be between 60 and 80 hours. And for a year-round average, it usually averages out to about 65 hours a week.
Each performs a specialized job, but both fill in for each other when the need arises.
Well, between Mike and Merlin, we divided in two groups, engine and chassis. Mike takes care of the chassis, and that's what he's been primarily doing, although Mike is certainly capable of repairing any of these engines. He's done it often enough in our early years back in 1980 and 81, and he certainly could substitute for Merlin any time. And the same with Merlin. Merlin can cross over when Mike is, let's say, tied up with the second bike or some other piece of equipment, and he'll slide right in there and take care of it.
Velasco joined Honda in 1979, Plumley in 1982. Once Plumley came aboard, the two started working together and have been a team ever since.
Yeah, we work together pretty much like a team. I've had a lot of other guys that I've worked with, but we seem to be on the same wavelengths. You know, it's just some people you can understand what they're going to think before they even think it, and it's been pretty good. We've had a couple of good seasons together, and we're hoping to do another one.
In 1984, after winning 10 of 13 races and his first Superbike title, Merkel nicknamed the two the Burner Brothers. 1985 saw Merkel take 6 more wins, a second title, and status as the winningest rider in Superbike history. This year, they're on top of the series standings again. For Merkel, that means peace of mind.
I know that I'm totally safe, I'm secure, nothing is going to fall off the motorcycle. It's prepared 100%, and nothing's going to happen. And it's all up to me to win or do whatever it takes to win.
Merkel receives instant gratification for his work in the winner's circle. But what about Velasco and Plumley? What are their rewards?
It's a competition amongst mechanics now then to whose machine works the best on the racetrack. And that's what I look at it for, is just to try to be the best one out there.
We get along fine. I'm here to win, and they're here to win, and we do that quite a bit, so we get along just fine.
Number 1, we're going to try them today.
We hope you enjoyed this month's edition of Motoworld and that you'll be with us next month on Monday, July 28th. And don't forget the Coors Trivia Contest. We'll give you a clue each month on Motoworld. Entry blanks are available at the Coors Trivia Contest display at your local Honda dealer, or write us here at Motoworld. Next month, we'll have highlights from 2 of the most important races of the year. First, we'll go to California for the Nissan 200 road race from Laguna Seca Raceway in Monterey, California. Then, we'll head upstate New York for the 250cc U.S. Motocross Grand Prix at Unadilla, where the best U.S. motocrossers will go head-to-head against their European counterparts. We'll have all of that and much more on the July 28th edition of Motoworld. Remember, Motoworld airs the last Monday of the month at 10 p.m. Eastern and Pacific. As always, we appreciate your comments and suggestions. Write us at Motoworld, P.O. Box 490099, Atlanta, Georgia 30349. That's Motoworld, P.O. Box 490099, Atlanta, Georgia 30349. Until July 28th, keep your wheels on the ground and your feet on the pegs. For Motoworld, I'm Larry Myers.
Motoworld has been brought to you by Coors, the beer with a difference worth tasting. Coors is the one. Honda motorcycles and ATVs. Honda, follow the leader. Ford and your local Ford dealer who invite you to test drive the 1986 Ford trucks. Ford is America's truck, built Ford tough. Fram Autolite, the makers of Fram oil filters and Autolite spark plugs. And by Castrol, motor oil engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines. A promotional fee has been paid by Cycle News.
Hi, I'm Eddie Lawson. I read Cycle News. I like seeing my name in the paper.
To subscribe to Cycle News at half the retail price, call toll-free.
And by the American Motorcyclist Association.
The American Motorcyclist Association keeps the fun in motorcycling with benefits, activities, and by protecting your right to ride. For information, call 1-800-AMA-JOIN.
And by High Torque Publications.
Guarantee the good times with Dirt Wheels, the world's #1 ATV magazine.
The Macho Man.